Well, hello, everybody. Here we go. Here we go. Welcome to number one, no, three, 234. 234. Yeah. Hello, Larry. Nice to see you. Pardon the hair. I still haven't got my hair cut. Today, let me get this straightened out. Today, we're going to be talking about how to make a living in music. And before we touch on some points, let me get that off. Before we touch on some points, I want to. Hello, Karen. Karen says, "Hi, Eddie, is a method to a drop from an E or a straight line rise from G to E." Hello, Mr. Lampy. Nice to see you. All right, so we'll come back to that because I don't know what you're saying. Is there a method to a drop from an E? Okay, we'll come back to that. So let's talk about making a living in music. And the reason why it's on my mind right now is because I've had this conversation with, let me pull that down here, with some of my students. I have some younger ones that want to make a living, and I don't try to discourage them, but I do want. I remember someone said, "So you're giving them a reality check." Yes, we can say that. We can say reality check, and part of the reason why I have to do that is because to help them decide what they want to do. Everybody else. I remember when I was looking into becoming a musician, I just had people that said yes you could, and people that said no you can't. Talking about how good I was, and that's not how it works. I think somehow people think that the ones that make a living are the ones that are good at it. And you can be good at it and make a living, but that's not how it works. So, let me just say that I have had a fairly successful career playing music. My last day job was in 1988 when I quit working for Domino's Pizza. That was my last day job, 1988. And yeah, so there were some ups and downs. I had a bankruptcy. If I'm going to be honest, had a bankruptcy in not long after 1988. That would be 94. So 6 years afterwards. So yeah, but since then, and I don't know. So there's a lot of stuff I learned over the years. And I can remember when I decided to just go forward with this because things had not gone well, and you guys have heard some of this story before. Oh, I see. I'm reading the comments, sorry. So yes, let's talk about, I hope you understand that, yes, I've had a career in music. I'm still in it now, but it looks different now. Now, it doesn't look different to me. It would look different to the people on the outside looking in. right? Because, for example, writing books, I've been writing books all along. Writing compositions, I've been writing compositions all along. Teaching lessons, I've been teaching lessons all along. Playing gigs, I've been playing gigs all along. I've been doing all of the stuff I do now. Um, the only thing that's changed is the ratio of one thing to the other. Obviously, when I first started writing books, I didn't make as much money on the books as I do now. But speaking of books, by the way, we've got a book in the works that's already uh, what do you call it? Um, it's already a ebook, but there have been people asking, please make it a physical book, so we've been putting effort into that. I'll tell you next time what it is. That one will be available on February 15th. Okay. So anyway, here's what I tell my students to do if they want to be professional musicians. This is what I ask them to do. I tell them, look at what, and I'm talking about children, right? If you're an adult and you want to be a pro, you don't need my help, right? So I'm talking about kids that are in school that want to graduate from high school, graduate from college, and then make a living as a musician. I ask them to, this is the first thing we do, look at what your parents make, divide that by 52, and ask yourself, could you possibly make that kind of money? Now, why do I ask them to do that? Because that's the lifestyle that they live now, and it doesn't make any sense to me for a student to live at a lower lifestyle than what the parents lived. That makes no sense to me. So I have them figure out how much they would have to make. Now, if you want to do just one parent, that's fine. But how much would you have to make to equal what your parents are making? And I'm going to tell you, most of the students that I've taught would never want to live at that level. Most of the students I've taught would not welcome that kind of lifestyle after having been grown up with so much more money than what they would have. Now, is this a way for me to discourage them? No, I don't discourage them. What I will do is encourage them to either go into education so that you have like a backup plan, go into education, or go into business. Now, let me tell you what's changed since I was in school. Back when I was in school, if you were a great player, you could work. Because of supply and demand, there were so many trumpet positions. With the big bands, the military things, now the orchestras still have. But yes, there were so many, and we hear stories all the time about trumpet players that were in university, and some big band would come through town, and they would just snatch that trumpet player up, and he wouldn't finish school because he's going to do what he wanted to do. Why would he finish school? So a lot of those guys didn't finish their degrees because, and in fact, I think even back then, what was common was for people to not plan to get their degree, to just really, really shut on the horn, get really, really good on the instrument, and expect to just get picked up like that. So let me tell you this, times have changed. Times have changed. That's not how it works today. Because of supply and demand. Now you have in every town, for every band, an abundance of trumpet players for every job. So now, first of all, it doesn't matter how good you are. And that's a whole different story, but I don't think it matters at all how good you are. In fact, there used to be things that used to be true back when I was younger, like never miss a gig. And the first time, because here's what they say: if you miss a gig, they have established that you're not trustworthy. And why should we ever hire you again? Because, you're not trustworthy. You didn't make it to the gig. And this, by the way, was so extremely true back then that it didn't matter what excuses you had. It didn't matter what happened. It didn't matter if you had a good excuse. The only kind of excuse that you could have that wouldn't get you in trouble this way was you're in the hospital. Like you had a car wreck or something on the way there and you're in the hospital and can't get there. But even that, I think, as extreme as it was back then, even that, if you did end up in the hospital, but they found out that it was something dumb that you did to get you there, you're out of the band. Right? And it's strange to me. This is the strange part, right? It's strange to me because you would think that because of supply and demand, that this would mean that today, that's when this would be happening. Because, hey, I could give that job to anybody, right? But that's not how it works. I have seen with my own two eyes that this standard of professionalism is gone. And what they really want is to like you. That's what they really want. The band leaders today want to like you. They don't care if you show up all the time. They just want to like you. And that to me is the most bizarre thing. It's bizarre. So, but the truth is, a lot of us that are trumpet players that want to be pro are not, generally speaking, likable people. I know I'm not. Right? I mean, look at my hair. You can imagine that they would want some young dude with, well, I'm not going to spell it out, but, and now I'm making it worse. Woo-hoo! But yeah, so what I tell most of them that say, oh, no, I really, really, really want to be a musician. I tell them to get a degree in business, not in music. Get a degree in business and treat your music like a business. Treat your music career like a business. Have a product, sell the product, have multiple products, have all of that stuff. David says, when asked what advice he would give to young musicians to get started professionally, Frank Zappa says, don't do it. Right? But yes, you have to approach it like a business. I think the problem is today that the schools are still teaching that if you want to be a professional player, all you have to do is be good at trumpet. And that world doesn't exist anymore. That world simply doesn't exist. So I was fortunate because I'm not a I say this a lot. I'm not kidding. I'm not a really likable person. I tell people never wanted to be popular. I wanted to be well regarded. Never wanted to be popular. I didn't want to be the guy that everybody would invite to their party. I didn't want to be the guy that would be the life of the party. I never wanted that. Never wanted it. Right? Um, Instead, I want to be highly regarded, well regarded, highly regarded. I wanted to be the guy that you hired because you trusted him to do a good job. That is always uh, my emphasis in my career. I want people to know that they can trust me. I want people to know that there's no con artist stuff going on here. That I'm going to show up to their gig. I'm going to show up to their lesson, um, stuff like that. That's not the standard that people have today. And so, yes, I do recommend that for the ones that want to be performing, not just somehow connected to music, um, that they get a business degree. And so here's the thing about how money making works, right? You as a single musician can't make enough money to pay the bills. It's getting harder and harder to do that. It's getting increasingly more competitive to do that. And because of that, you're forced to deal with something that can that ceiling. So what do I mean by the ceiling? You can only do so many gigs. You can only teach so many lessons. And so you have to do something that um, that breaks that ceiling, right? So, like for me, for example, uh, the compositions in the books have the potential to do that kind of thing, and they are starting to. Um, I heard a interview with someone that makes a living as a novel writer, and I know novels are not the same thing as trumpet books, um, but the novelist said that you don't break in until you've had 50 books. So, and I'm like, okay, 50, I can reach that. I can get there. Larry says guitarist Wes Montgomery worked a full-time job almost throughout his career. This is another thing, if you don't, I'll tell you what, most of the best musicians in Houston are either retired from full-time work or they are still working full-time and uh, play on the side, right? That's the best players in town are like that, excluding myself. So, for me, I'm going to get back to you, Karen. Sorry. For me, there were a bunch of times when it went so badly that I was this close to quitting. And I'll tell you what, there was a Bible verse that I remembered in those times, and I could never find that verse again. But I remember stumbling upon it when I was younger. And the Bible verse said something to the effect of that your life should be straight as an arrow. And I would always think about that when times were tough. I would think about, if I got out now, and I know they study this, right? They study this in psychology. There's a psychological element to this. You get so deep into it that what you've done already seems like it's a waste of time. And the psychologist will say that's just psychology, right? That's just the way your mind works. But the truth is, because I did stick with it ended up being worth it. And if I had quit when I felt like quitting, that would have been the end of it. And I could look back and say, well, I should have probably quit earlier, that kind of thing, right? Because, hey, look at how things are. Just a waste of time, waste of money, waste of everything, waste of my whole life, right? Now, I do think that you have to. Now, I know that not all of you are Christian. For me, every time that it got bad like that, I went back to God and asked Him, "What do you want me to do? Do I quit?" So it wasn't just me going on my feelings. But I'll tell you what, because I had people, I told you I had either people were telling me I couldn't do it or I could do it. That's not what I needed to hear back then. I knew I could do it. I knew deep down I could do it. What I needed from them, from these people that cared about me so much, what I needed from them was, and this probably wasn't possible because, like I said, those were different days. What I needed from them was for them to tell me there's no money, that you'll get all the way through all this, and you could be the best in a major city like Houston and not make any money. That's what I needed to know. And would that change? Would that cause me to not pursue music? No, that wouldn't have changed anything. What it would have changed was how I handled the decisions I made in terms of making money. I would have probably put a lot more effort into having my own bands. I do have my own bands, and I guess right now, about a third of my gigs right now are with my own bands. But I think I would have put a lot more effort into that part of it. In fact, I probably would have become a agent booking other bands. So that's what I'm saying. That being an agent or a contractor or stuff like that, you're not just limited to making money off of your own time. Now you're also making money off of other people's time too, which is how business works, right? So, for example, I got a call from a guy from Los Angeles. I don't mind mentioning his name here. I think his name is Dave Siebel, or Siebels with an S at the end. Dave Siebels, who had a gig here in Houston. He asked me if I could do it. I said, no, I'm not available, but I can get you a band. And so last week, I provided him a band for his event here. Now, the guys that I know and use, I'm still working on that old principle, get the best players in town. I'm still working on that principle. And I hired him a band that he said was a wonderful band. And yes, I would like to do more of that. I'm just kind of stuck with the way I spend my time right now, especially now with the whole sitting in a dialysis chair. Anyway, I'm going to come back to Karen now. Karen's talking about, I think, a glissando. And So G to E, I think you missed, Karen, I think you dropped out something in your first sentence. If it's just a line that doesn't go to another note, that's not a glissando, that's a fall. And some people call it a drop off. Um, in a sense, they're both the same thing in jazz. If it's in classical music and between two notes, that's a glissando. Okay, and so there's 4 different ways to play a glissando. One of the common ones is half valve, and the way I do the half valve is I put the third valve just barely from the bottom, the second one and the third one. Well, actually, I've got it backwards. First valve is halfway, a little lower, a little lower. Oh, never did that looking in the mirror before. All right, so right, so the half valve one. The half valve one is the smoothest one. Okay. Now, if it's just a line without going to another note, you can do a lip. So that's number 2 is a lip fall. Right? That's a very percussive fall. And I use it a lot in salsa and really loud playing and stuff like that. I would not do that in a big band jazz situation. There's another one. I call it the wiggle your fingers fall. Okay. Okay, so the fall. So yes, you can do a wiggle the fingers fall. You can do also like what the saxes do, where they just play notes, and it's usable. It's very close to the wiggle your fingers, but yeah. So those are the different types. Now let's talk about what's happening inside the mouthpiece, because the pitch doesn't change from doing those things. The pitch changes from what you do with your lips, right? You have to bring the pitch down. So it's not good enough to wiggle your fingers. You could wiggle the fingers and it doesn't do anything. You have to make the pitch come down. So in all of those, it's the lips that make the fall. And how the tone quality of that fall is dependent on which one of those methods we use. Now, I use all of those methods. There's not a right one or a wrong one. I use all of those. And I will also say that it does depend on what your section leader is doing. As a general rule, whatever one that your section leader is using, that's the one you should use to match the section leader. Okay? So yeah, those are the 4 or 5 different ways. I don't remember how many I said. Well, those are the different ways that we do that. Larry says, my question for today, are lead pipe and rim buzzing device exercises beneficial, or is it a ploy to get you to purchase some unneeded items? I'm leaning towards the latter. Okay, so you know what? I had a lesson with Armando Vitale, and he had me pull the lead pipe off. Now my lead pipe is just a little bit stuck right now. I need to wash it and Oh, look how dry that is. So he had me take the lead pipe off, and then you finger the scale up. Now the way he does lead pipe, or did lead pipe, he's passed away. The way he did lead pipe was with the fingerings, and he even had like those Sandoval's, right? I'm sure at Sandoval's or whatever they're called. I'm sure that Armando Vitale was doing this long before Arturo Sandoval. I'm sure of it. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been sure and wrong at the same time. So, but anyway, the way he had it was you played the scale up. Now, obviously, I don't do it. If I did do it, I would be able to do it better than that. I appreciated him teaching that to me, and I understand why. I understand the benefit of it. Yes, there is benefit. However, oh, I did it again. I've got. Sorry for the blurry picture. That's usually because I don't have lights on. Let me put some lights on. It takes a while to get back. Maybe if I. Oh, it fixed it. Okay, so what were we talking about? We're talking about. Oh yes, lead pipe buzzing. You don't have to buy anything, is what I'm trying to say. You can just take the slide off and do it on the horn. Is there benefit? Yes, there's benefit. Now I don't know what rim buzzing. What is rim buzzing? Is that the hollowed out mouthpiece so that you can see inside? Like a mouthpiece visualizer? The benefit of the visualizer is that you get to see. So, there's people that say, oh, you play in the red, you're not supposed to play in the red. You can't see playing in the red from the outside. Different people have different structure to their teeth, different structure to their lips. You cannot see that as a teacher. You can't just make a judgment. What a lot of guys will do is say where the mouthpiece is. This is how they do it. Oh, here we go again. Sorry. So where the mouthpiece is, what they say is that you shouldn't see any red of the lip over the mouthpiece. But they're looking at the outside. The outside doesn't matter. It's the inside that matters. So the reason why we have mouthpiece visualizers is to see the ratio of the top lip to the bottom lip. Let me show you. This is the one I have because this is what they used to have when I bought it. Okay. So now I've got the mustache problem. Let me try to get David, if you're still on here, Mr. Lampy, I actually brushed for the first time my mustache to the side yesterday. It made it very woolly. So anyway, can barely see that. if it wasn't for the mouthpiece, the mustache, you could see that mine is about 2/3 on the top and 1/3 on the bottom, which is ideal. Now we can have anything from that to half and half. I do think that 2/3, 1/3 is more ideal than 1/2, 1/2. I think the 2/3 ratio is a much better ratio for playing the trumpet. But 1/2, 1/2 is acceptable. Oh, he says he trims the middle to accommodate the mouthpiece, so I might try that. That would be so. Anyway, it was my first time. I knew it would be wild afterwards, so I figured, hey, the rest of it's wild right now, so that's all right. So yes, the visualizer is a tool for diagnosis. It's not something you would practice on. And the only reason you would buy it is if you think that you might have a bad placement, so that you can look inside to see what it looks like. All right, but the other one, the lead pipe, there is benefit. Now, why do I not do it? If I paid for that lesson with Armando Guitarra, and I don't do what he said. But the reason why is because I've already got my thing. By the time I took that lesson with him, my routine was already established. By that time, I had been doing the same structure for the routine for about 10 years. I squint like that when I'm thinking. All right. So, all right. So let's see here. Oh, okay. Karen says the drop off, whatever they call it. It's in the theme for New York, New York. I'll ask how others are doing it. Yes. So that would be a jazz thing. I know that there's a lot of people. I used to work with a band, right, that did weddings, and like over half of the gig was jazz stuff, and then they'd switch gears and do dance music, right? That the leader of that band would never ever ever call that band a jazz band, even though everybody in the band is a jazz musician, even though over half of the music we played was jazz stuff like New York, New York. We played New York, New York almost every gig. In the Mood almost every gig. But this guy absolutely refused to call it a jazz band. And maybe that was for business reasons, right? Maybe jazz bands don't get wedding gigs. So I was with that band for 20 years. So yeah, there are some people that would not call New York, New York jazz, but it's a swing tune. So it is jazz. Karen says, any tips on getting rid of extra air when playing continuously in a march? Oh, like the air that builds up. You know, so you're talking about like the oompa stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have a march that you're going, so the air is not flowing enough, and it goes still inside, right? Okay, yes. So really, I breathe in and out during those times. I'll go. I don't have something I'm reading, so it's kind of hard to just improvise that. That's not what I'm trying to say. So what I'll do is I'll expel the air at the end of my breath in bits like that, just like I was breathing right now. It's kind of hard to demonstrate. Um, but yes, I'll expel the air in little bits as I'm going, so that I can deplete it out of my lungs. That's how he connects to the hate jazz crowd. what, well, I'm missing something here. What is how I connect? Oh, you're talking about that band leader. That's right. There's the hate jazz crowd out there that's got lots of money. That way he doesn't. Yeah, I get it. That's right. So yeah, that band, that was a great band. I think that's by far the best band I ever played with, and I was in that band for 20 years. Um, we used to do at the end of the party, we used to play giant steps just to get people to go out, leave the ballroom, um, and stuff like that. Kind of a. But a lot of times we would do that, and the people would like it more and stick around and watch us like it was a concert or something. To me, I never understood the whole need to dance thing. If the people, let's say you have a wedding, and the wedding family hires your band, and they don't dance, they just sit there and watch the music. Uh, when did that become a problem? I understand that there's like some people stereotypes, right? That everybody needs to be dancing and having a great time. But what if they're having a great time listening to great music? So yeah, that part of it. So every time a band plays a gig, and like, I'm gonna say that for the most part, all the bands I played with were pretty good. And there were times when we would do a wedding or a corporate gig or something like that, and the people just would sit like they're in a concert. And at the end, as leaders, like, oh, what a terrible gig! What a terrible gig! I don't get that. Why would that be a terrible gig? I mean, I do kind of get it because that's what we're there for, is for the dancing. But if the people liked it, what's the problem? It'd be different. It would be different if the people just sat there and listened and didn't like it. That would be something entirely different. Yeah. So, you know, I've played. Let me tell you something. Since the theme is making a living in music, um, I've I made a decision because my first gig here in Houston was a regular gig with a band, a cumbia band. I don't know if you guys know what cumbias are. Actually, it was half cumbias, half rancheras, which at that time just wasn't done. And in fact, to have trumpet in a cumbia band from a Mexican cumbia band, in Colombia they had, and Argentina they had trumpet in their band, but in the Mexican cumbias they didn't have. So that's one of the things that made our band different, was we had a horn section. Um, of course, otherwise I wouldn't have been in the band. But uh, that band, as much as I love the music and I love the people, it was quite a bit abusive. And I decided from that point forward, I made a business decision. that every band I worked with, it was going to be from that point forward, first come, first serve. And the way I saw it was that the most professional band called you sooner anyway. So, like that band I told you I was with for 20 years, um, he used to call a year in advance. So when other people called, I would just say, "No, man, I've got that date booked already." Uh, and that's how it was. I still operate that way. And by the way, when times got slow, if the bands I was working with were hit hard, I got hit hard because a lot of times they, a lot of the gigs that I did, I was not the regular player. I was a sub. Not with that one band I'm talking about, right? That band, he always called so far in advance that I was always the first call. And there were other bands that called me first, but for the most part, most of my gigs I've played have been either as a pickup musician, that's where they just put a band together at the last minute, or as a substitute for their trumpet player who couldn't make it. Most of my gigs were like that. And so you got to imagine the skill you have to make that work. That's a lot of skill. You got to be a sight reader. You have to have lead chops. You've got to be able to improvise. And that reminds me, since we're talking about it, one of the most influential master classes I ever went to was this guy. He's a valve trombone player named Ashley Alexander. You can look him up. He's got a wonderful big band based out of Los Angeles. The Ashley Alexander Big Band, I think is what it's called. And he came to El Paso, was a guest soloist with us. And he gave a music business, what do you call it? Music business masterclass. And he wrote in fact, you know what? I can share screen. Where's that share screen button? Let me pull up my little handy dandy chart. Where's my handy dandy chart? Where is it? There it is, concepts. Let me share screen. And I'll show you the chart that he put on the chalkboard. We didn't have white screen back then. Where's the pop out? Hey, there was a button for sharing screen. What happened to it? Share screen. All right, so I'll click on that. Okay, so entire screen. I'm going to move. Whoa, that was cool. All right, so here we go. This is what he wrote. Oh, hey, that's cool. I'm in there still too. Hey, I like this. Okay, so he put a circle. Now I'm doing this with my mouse, so it's not a perfect circle. And then it had a hub in the center, and he said, this is a wagon wheel. And he said, if your wagon wheel has one spoke, it's going to be a rough ride. And this wagon wheel represents your whole career. So if you're a one-horse pony, or whatever they say, I shouldn't be using idioms. I get them wrong all the time. Yeah, if you only have one thing that you do, let's say you play trumpet, and even worse, you only play certain kinds of gigs, That's one spoke. That's going to be a bumpy ride. When people don't need that anymore, you're out of business. This guy, Ashley Alexander, also wrote charts. So he had another spoke. He also did recording work. He was on a bunch of movie tracks and stuff like that. And so, yes, he did all kinds of. So here's teaching. And he said that the more kinds of things that you do, the smoother your ride becomes. You guys should look up Ashley Alexander. He really is a great band, a great jazz player. But this was foundational for me in the business side of what I do. So for me personally, I have different streams of income. So like with trumpet, with the performance stuff, it's really very broad, right? So I do jazz, I do classical, I do salsa, all of this stuff. Then with the composition stuff, then with the teaching of lessons, and then with the publishing of the books. And so, yes, I've got, hello, Seppo, nice to see you. I've got all of this stuff that I have to help make the career a smooth ride. And like I said, no, and I'm not bragging, okay? Because I could have done a lot better over all these years. I'm not bragging. But when I married my current wife, let me see here. When I married my current wife, we made the decision that she would work with me. So a lot of these guys that are full-time musicians that don't make a lot of money rely on their wives to support them. And for me, that was never an option. With my ex-wife, it was only about 6 months before she left. And maybe this is saying something, right? That she made more money than I did. And because that mattered to me. You can say, oh, well, you're a sexist, or you old-fashioned, or whatever you want to call it, but that mattered to me. It has always mattered to me. The husband is the provider. I'm not anti-women working or anything like that. I just don't think it's as good for the family as you know what I mean? Especially if, so for me, I work at home, right? Most of the work I do is right here in this chair at this computer. And she has an office on the other side of the room. That's how she keeps saying. And yes, we work together and we make that work. So like for now, right now, she's got, because of this new book we're trying to put out, she's helping me with the editing the text and stuff like that. And obviously she makes, I think you guys all know this, she makes all of the covers. She does all the artwork for the covers. Not all of it is 100% original. She does take public domain images and edits them sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. But yeah, she works with me, and we make this work. And so the point I'm making is that I've been successful enough that the only time she's had to get a job while she's been here is during COVID, when nobody was working. So yeah, and that's so since 1988. That's a long time. Most people retire by that time, right? Most people, when they get this far into their career, they retire. My dad told me, 20 years, that's retirement age. 20 years working for the same company. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. I always enjoy hanging out with you. So, any other questions before we close it down? I bought, well, actually, Pearl bought it for me. One of those outdoor. Well, of course, it's outdoor. It's a uh, smoke pit made out of iron, and I think I'm going to go install it now and put some wood in it. We've got some wood that's been sitting for a while when we trimmed the tree out front. Nice hard wood. The weather seems real nice. I got one that has a grill over the top. Let me tell you about that. I don't mind sharing that kind of stuff with you. So there's work that I need to get done on the house, and I don't want to get a new smoker until I do that work. Otherwise, nothing to motivate me to get that work done. But I thought, okay, if I'm not going to have a smoker, and when I get a smoker, by the way, I want it to be like $1,200, $1,600 smoker, which doesn't make any sense because you could just go buy the stuff at a restaurant or something. But I like having that ability to do it myself, right? So I bought this fire pit, and it has double duty. I can go outside, be in the weather, and not get too cold, right? Just sit around the fire pit and put some meat on there too. In South Africa, they call it a braai. So, yeah, probably do that today. Any other questions? All right, I think we'll go ahead and close it down then. As always, it's great to see you guys. And God bless you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.